would like to record.
It says the session is being recorded.
Perfect. Thanks, Casey.
All right.
Got it? There we go.
We've got it. So, Sean, first off, good morning, and thanks for joining us. So my name is Casey Glanders. I'm a product specialist with Synovia. And the reason Matt's brought me on is to make sure that you get a deep technical walkthrough of what the site has and to answer your questions as best I can. And Sean, I looked over the notes Matt sent me. He said that you had an interest in student ridership and integration with your existing Versatrans. Sean, what specifically would you like to see today?
I'd just like to see a high-level overview of how the AVL works through Synovia, student tracking, especially with tight integration with the AVL, and then showing me how Synovia can integrate with our current solutions we're using for routing and for fleet management.
All right, I think we can do that. And sir, how many vehicles, I apologize, it was cutting kind of in and out there for a bit. How many vehicles did you say you had? You said 90?
We have 150 that will implement GPS on.
All right.
I think our fleet is close to 200, but we're only interested in AVL on about 150.
All right. And sir, I notice you're using Versatrans, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Excellent. I did see that you have E-Link.
Yeah, we have E-Link for reporting information to parents, RP, routing planning, and then we use Fleet Vision for the fleet management.
Okay. So just moving forward with this, assuming this is something that you wish to do, I would suggest that afterwards you talk to your Versatrans sales rep and just make sure that your E-Link allows for third-party integration. In the past, this was the case. I know that presently they've kind of switched things up a little bit and they've slipped third-party integration in with a separate name. So may want to check that. Something else I would encourage you to do moving forward would be to contact Versatrans and make sure that you have the most accurate and up-to-date version of your area's maps. We have found that if your maps are 5 years old or older, they could be off by up to 300 yards. And that can cause some issues with the pickup and drop-off.
Yeah, I actually update the maps myself, working with our county GIS department.
Wonderful. Sir, do you have ready access to your local GIS server?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm a GIS certified, and I kind of work with our local agencies here.
Oh my gosh. Okay, then we can do some cool stuff. In fact, I might have to look up a separate account here today while we're working. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that here in the background real quick because there is something very cool I want you to be able to see. Right. So what I'm going to do, what you're seeing here on my screen is I'm going to walk you through a live demonstration of an active client. In fact, I'm going to walk you through a live demonstration of several active clients. The one I'm going to start with is Decatur Township, just to the south of Indianapolis. They've given me permission to share their data. In fact, they're running about 81 vehicles. They are users of Versatrans. They've got E-Link. They've got the integration. They're also using Here Comes the Bus. They use our engine diagnostics. So many of the things that you've asked for. Now, one piece that they're not using that you've asked to see is student ridership. For that, we're going to kick over to Newport News Public Schools over in Virginia to see an accurate example of student ridership. We're also going to take a look at the city of Chesapeake. I'm going to pick on them because they're doing something that not too many of our clients are, but I have a feeling you will be. They're using their own maps. Okay. Which is something that we actually encourage.
Great.
All right. So let's go ahead and start by diving into the system just to give you a feel for what our telematics can do. This is all web-based, by the way. Everything I'm about to show you is online. You can access this via Internet Explorer or Mozilla Firefox. Now, this is done in Microsoft Silverlight presently, so you'll need a patch for Google Chrome to run it. About mid-year, we're looking at switching over to an HTML5 architecture, so it should run just fine in Google Chrome and so on. Okay. But right now, this is the current system. It provides real-time track and trace on every single vehicle in your fleet. Now, This particular fleet, for the most part, is parked right now. It's 1:17 p.m. out here. However, it does... Okay, no, he's parked. Let's try him. He's parked too. Okay, well, you know what? We might be switching over a little bit faster than I thought here. Yep. Every single vehicle of that 81 vehicle fleet is parked.
Yeah.
Yep. That's okay. Let's go ahead and kick over then to Newport News. Give me a second here. I have to do the passwords off the top of my head. Here we go. Their fleet's a little larger. They've got about 330 plus vehicles, all operating on the peninsula. And just by sheer numbers, they typically have somebody moving. So we'll log in and we'll view them. We'll kick back over to the first fleet I showed you, and we take a look at the Versatrans integration. All right, so here we go. Looks like we're logged in. I'm going to go straight to fleet tracking, and let's find somebody in motion so that you can see what our watch live looks like. Here we go. Got a fleet of 333 vehicles. And we'll just ask the system to put all of them on the screen at the same time. It's going to be a bit of a mess. That's okay, though. Let's get rid of our labels, and we'll zoom in. The arrows represent motion as the last thing that was tracked. I'm going to pick on vehicle 002. And here we go. Watch live. So, sir, from ignition on to ignition off, every single vehicle that we are tracking worldwide, and I can say worldwide because we have clients in Canada, Mexico, Central America, Panama, Costa Rica, all across the North American continent. But every single vehicle that we track sends out a GPS pulse, bare minimum, once every 30 seconds to let us know where the vehicle is and where the vehicle is going. So you can see down here what I'm talking about. You've got the date and time stamp for the vehicle, the standard GPS event that was recorded. We have the speed. We have the heading, so you can see what direction it's traveling in, so where it's going. You've got the location as our current mapping system has it listed. And you have the total distance traveled by the vehicle since starting up this morning. And every 30 seconds, our website will refresh automatically to grab any new data that has come in. You can see as I've been talking. How long is the delay
from when it's transmitted to when it's visible on the screen?
Well, trying to word this appropriately here, it's supposed to be instantaneous. We don't sit on your data for any length of time. However, the website has to refresh once every 30 seconds. Now, in our sandbox for HTML5, I have noticed that the website does an auto refresh every time new data hits the server. So moving to HTML5, there's zero delay. Here, at most, it is 30 seconds. But yeah, we don't sit on it in a packet and push it out. You get it as it's transmitted.
Okay.
Now, this client's cheating. That's why I don't like to lead with this one. If you do the math and you look at the timestamp, you can see they're transmitting every 15 seconds instead of every 30. We can do that. Heck, we can technically do every 10, but I really don't advise it. You just get flooded with data at that point. But you can see here that it's continually reporting. And what's cool is it's also going to show us things like speeding, idling, harsh braking, harsh acceleration, and harsh turning. On top of that, we can tie in to up to 7 separate tap points in the system. And that can be anything that happens to have 12 volts running through it. So your entrance doors, your ambers, and your stop arms all qualify. But we can also do your child check. We can do a chairlift. We can do, in this client's case, we can do turn signals. We can do reverse. We can do parking brake. Really anything that has a 12-volt circuit, we can tell you up to the second when and where those items were triggered.
Is that all through the ODBC port, or is that through add-on sensors?
It's through an actual twist-in wiring to the sensors. So we don't require the ECM or the OBD on your vehicle to read the data. Now that being said, we totally can. If your buses are newer than 1999, we have the option of plugging into an ECM port so that we can read your engine diagnostics and work with some fuel economy reporting. But our devices don't require it. We can just do a twist-in wiring on those tap points. So again, anything with a 12-volt circuit we can connect to.
Okay.
The devices, I'm going to go a little bit geekier since the questions you're asking tell me that you're probably more adept at this than the average TD. The devices that we're currently using are the CalAmp 4200 series, pictured here. For your vehicles that we can actually plug into the ECM port via Deutsch cable, we'd probably be using the 4225 on the right. The big advantage being that we can easily read engine diagnostics, and that it also has, although we've never really had to use it, the ability to keep reporting in the event of the device getting unplugged while the vehicle is on. I can only do this for up to 30 minutes at the most, but it is capable. Now this is kind of a non-issue because we put this device underneath in the main cockpit of the bus. We usually put it underneath an operations panel. So the driver has no physical means of getting to the device. The most that they might see is, say, a sticky antenna that might go in the top left corner on the inside window.
Okay.
Now for your white fleet, we do have an OBD device that can plug in. This can get all your standard reporting events, GPS locations, speeding, idling, harsh events, but it cannot pick up on things like tap points. We can't pick up on ambers or entrance doors through this. This is more designed for things like, say, a sedan or a pickup or a van.
Gotcha.
And I know it's kind of hard to tell by size, but if you use the standard size of an OBD port here as your unit of measurement, this thing's really tiny. It's about the size of a deck of cards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the maps, since it sounds like you've got some familiarity here. Our standard mapping system is currently provided via Bing Maps. They're who are behind our current backer. Bing Maps is fine. They've got some great latitude, longitude coordinates that we can use. We can zoom in up to 1,500 feet from space, and we get an update from them once every 6 months, give or take. Now, we are switching to ALK maps mid-year. And ALK, from what I understand, updates every 4 weeks. Also, their traffic pattern overlay is a lot more robust. However, and I'm sure you've run into this. You work with Bing, you work with Google, even ALK, you're going to hit issues where there should be a road here, but it just shows a field, or vice versa, especially if you've got some rural pickups. So that's why I spent some time bringing up this third account. So here's Chesapeake Public Works. Let me go into their fleet tracking. Let me show you something really cool we can do. Hold on a moment. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to bring up, just for example here, contractual services. Okay, so here are the maps as provided by Bing Maps. Here are the maps according to the Chesapeake Streets GIS server. So if you've got an open API on your server, we can flip back and forth between our stored maps and your updated maps. You just tell us what you'd like. And beyond that, sir, if you happen to have some shapefiles or whatnot that you'd like us to use, we can import those. We can even show you how to upload those yourself. For instance, they've got some hurricane debris paths that need to be cleared first thing. They typically show up in purple here on the map. This was an imported file that we just do as an overlay. So you've got the option, sir. We can take your files in a one-time import, or we can do a real-time connection to your server.
Okay.
It's not something you have to do, and we don't charge extra for it. It's really cool to know that you've got the option, especially if it turns out, like when you're doing your routing, there's a road that's not appearing. Well, we'll use your maps.
Okay.
So, sir, questions on the Watch Live?
No, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's
okay.
All right with that.
Well then, let's go ahead and dive into Vstream and talk a little bit about Versatrans integration. So I'm going to kick back over to Decatur, because they're an actual Versatrans customer. The live fleet that we were watching was actually Edgelog. Here we go. This vehicle may be parked right now, but it's already put in close to 22 miles this morning. I'm going to go into its vehicle history. Sir, we keep all of your vehicle data stored on our front-end server for up to 24 months. So you can go back 2 years if you need to see what your vehicle has done. I'm going to bring up everything this vehicle has done. Give it just a moment. Here we go. I have 429 events just for today, starting with a diagnostic hello at about 3 a.m. And all of your vehicles are going to do this, sir. Moving forward with us, the devices that we have, you'll find that they all talk. Even if your buses never start up for the day, they all talk at least once a day, typically between 2 and 5 a.m. And that's just to let us know where they are and also to make sure that your voltage has not dropped below a certain reading, typically 10.5 volts, but we can adjust.
Okay.
So looks like they actually started up at 5:38. If I wanted to, I could follow them through all their different events. So he just sat there for a long time. It looks like he started to do his check. There's a lot here. I'm going to go ahead and redraw this. I'm going to tell it to only do my entrance door events, but to also draw a red line through the route that the vehicle traveled. There we go. So here are all the stops that this vehicle made today. I also get to see the complete path of the vehicle. So it looks like we had a stop this morning at Southwest Drive at 7:09:45. That was a really short stop, though. That was a rolling stop.
Couple seconds.
Interesting. Yeah. Looks like he was actually kind of sort of moving. I bet I know why. It's because he was rolling out of the yard. It's cold, and there's a railroad crossing there. I bet he skimped. Because, yeah, when we start to get over here, towards where I know his neighborhood is. There we go. We start to see that he's actually making what look like legitimate stops. Here's one on Mills Avenue for 10 seconds. So inadvertently, I showed you both sides of it there. I wasn't trying to. But this is a great way, number one, to verify that drivers are doing their job. And it's also a good way to catch drivers that may not be doing their job. And this, by the way, can print out to PDF or to XLS. It's your choice. I'm going to go ahead and do the PDF here on screen. There we go. It takes a screenshot of the map. And then there's the data that we were just looking at.
Okay.
Questions so far, sir?
No, that's good. I like that.
Okay. Well, let me show you the integration now. I'm going to go into plan versus actual. So what we can do, and traditionally this is done, oh, sure you can, Rob. Traditionally, what we do, sir, and this is done usually through E-Link, but again, Versatrans has switched things up on us here recently, is once every 24 hours, we can bring in all of your data from the Versatrans server. So we bring in all of your vehicles, all your routes, all of your assigned students, which I'm guessing you probably do through like Infinite Campus or Power School or one of those. We can bring in all your yards, your schools, everything you have, we can upload into our system. And then we can provide you a plan versus actual comparison. And that's what you're seeing here. The stuff
How is that integrated? Sorry, how's that integrated with Versatrans? Is there a service that integrates it, or is data pulled directly out of the Versatrans databases?
Data is pulled directly out via an API that has traditionally been provided via your E-Link. So if you have E-Link, then we should have access to the API. And again, the only reason I keep saying should is we recently signed a client that had just purchased Versatrans, and for whatever reason, their 2017 model, their E-Link wasn't including that API connection. We had to fight with them a little bit to get it. So that's
I'm wondering, is E-Link the right tool, or is it the Versatrans integration service? There's a tool called Versatrans Integration that is more of like a database connection tool that connects their internal services between their SQL database to the E-Link product.
I believe it's that second one. I believe it's the integration tool. It's just in the past, clients that have E-Link have had the other, and in the agreement that we have with them, they had specifically worded it as E-Link. So I bet what happened was they used to offer it as a bundle, and now they don't.
I'm just trying to clarify that. I just want to make sure I understand it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the VI Versatrans integration that's doing that integration to the products, and then E-Link is like the web interface reporting tool for reporting bus stops.
And you know, they should have on their end what you'll need. I mean, we have over 800 educational clients across the country. We do this with a lot of schools, and Versatrans is easily the #1 company that we partner with, followed very closely by TransFinder. Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, you're in good company, and they've seen this before.
Great.
So taking a look here, sir, at the bottom of my screen, the stuff in blue, That's your Versatrans data. That's all your planned routes. The stuff in red
Nice.
is the lined up stop data. And you can see here, we had a stop get skipped this morning on Glenarm and Halcombe. But we did have a stop take place, Glenarm and Lawrence Circle. It was supposed to be 6:46. It was 3 minutes late. We placed at 6:49, lasted 10 seconds. And Zach Sims is the child that is currently assigned to that stop. So I thought this is a really awesome tool for figuring out dead stops on a route, for figuring out extra stops on a route that maybe your driver shouldn't be making, things of that nature. Is this something that would be of benefit to you?
Yeah, I like that. I like the way the line-by-line comparison, especially because I can see the data directly from Versatrans. You know, that's a nomenclature of theirs with the stop, the at sign, and the direction afterwards in the corner. Looks familiar.
Now, this isn't the only thing we use this data for. I mean, you can report on this. This alone is pretty cool. But something else that we do is a yard monitor. Drivers absolutely hate this. So what we do is, again, this is based on your Versatrans data, but we can bring in your yard information. Right now we're looking at the midday runs. Let's look at AM departures. And this is a screen you can watch in real time. This morning they had 15 leave on time, 7 early, and 35 late, with 3 missing their runs. So you can see here actual ignition on, the planned exit time, the actual exit time. A lot of drivers kind of bristle at this a little bit.
Yeah.
But this also refreshes every 60 seconds automatically, so you don't have to keep running out to the yard to verify if a driver is actually taken off.
Okay.
Now, something else this does for you, and let me see if I can find an example of it. It's going to be hard because it's been so cold here lately. Oh, here we go. Actual ignition on 7:09. Exit time 7:14. In 5 minutes time, in 22-degree temperatures this morning, that driver was able to start up their vehicle, do a complete vehicle check, and then get going.
Nice.
There is no way.
Yeah.
To be very fair.
7 minutes out.
5 minutes.
10 minutes, yeah.
They totally skipped their pre-trip check.
9 to 14, yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a tool that you can use. We have a similar tool for school monitoring that you can give to principals or whatnot so that they can tune in and verify in real time as the buses arrive. But something else that this does for you, let me go to my screenshots to show you this next one, is if we have this data, if we've got your student data, if we've got your stop data and everything's lined up correctly, you then have the option of opening up for your district, Here Comes the Bus. This is a free app for parents and kids to download. And what it does is it takes that child's specific information and it says, here is just this child's home stop and just this child's school stop. You don't see any other stops along the route. You don't see the speed of the vehicle. You don't see its history or what events it's doing. You just see its general location listed on the map, and every 30 seconds that changes as it approaches the stop.
Okay, so that yellow dot is the location of the bus?
Yes, sir. The yellow dot is the location of the bus. If you have multiple children that you're tracking, you do have the ability to switch between those kids. For example, you might have, say, a high schooler getting on the same bus as a grade schooler, but the high schooler's bus arrives at 7 and the grade schooler's bus arrives at 8:30. It's 2 separate tiers for the same vehicle. You can switch between them, and you can even change the radius because, you know, the grade schooler, they might be ready to go. The high schooler might still be looking for pants and eating Fruit Loops when the bus is approaching. So you can adjust this radius. I'm a dad of 4. I'm actually citing real life here. You can adjust the stop radius up to 2 miles if you need to.
Nice.
And as a result, when the bus crosses it, everybody gets a push notification letting them know that the vehicle is about to make its stop.
That's cool.
Something else with this. You've got a large district. You have many buses. What if you have a bus that breaks down? What if you have a school that has a delay? What if things happen? With our system, one of the cooler things you can do is Here Comes the Bus messaging. And I can message by school or I can message by individual vehicle. So if there was something wrong with bus 1 and it was going to be 20 minutes late, I select bus 1, I write my message, and then send it out to email, text push notification, whatever I choose here, and just let those here comes the bus customers know that the bus is going to be late. In fact, heck, I can even schedule it.
Do you guys push those communications out, the emails and the text notifications, so those go out through your services?
Those go out through our services, but you're the one that actually controls it.
Okay, and then where is the data identifying the students that are assigned to these routes? Are those all taken directly from RP, from Versatrans?
100% from Versatrans, sir.
Okay, nice.
So any changes you make today in the system, if you move Timmy from bus 2 to bus 5 today, it's going to show up starting tomorrow morning.
Gotcha, that's cool.
Thank you. Now, something else we can do with that. You had mentioned the want for ridership. We have ridership. We have it in the form of a red laser barcode scanner, which can go in the cockpit of the vehicle. In fact, I have another shot of it here, a little bit more close up. The idea is that the child waves an ID card underneath that device. The red laser picks up on the barcode and scans it just like the scanners at Walmart. And just to address something right up front, I realize that a lot of high schoolers don't want to carry their IDs. A lot of high schoolers don't want to get their IDs out. One of the cooler things we have with Here Comes the Bus is in the app we've got a feature we're calling Bus Pass, where the kid just hits a button and their barcode ID comes up on their phone. Mm-hmm. So what we found is these phones are surgically grafted to the child's hand. So they're not going to lose them. They've got that. Yeah. You know, I'm only kind of kidding.
Yeah, that's the last thing they're going to lose, yeah.
Yeah. It can read just fine off the screen. In fact, it can read 19 different forms of barcode. If you've already got a barcode on your student IDs, I'd encourage you to get a copy to Matt so that we can test it and verify that it would work in our system.
Okay.
So here's what we do with this data. It's kind of twofold for the setup that we're looking at here. Number one is you, the transportation director, would be able to go into your reports at any time and run a scan history report. And you'd be able to see every kid who was on that vehicle today. Now, I have to be very careful with this example. We are dealing with real data. And this is where we start to get kind of towards violating FERPA laws if I show you what's going on today. So what I did was I asked Newport News if I could have a sample that was safe to show clients. And they said use bus 42. Bus 42 is a special needs run, and they said use June 1st, 2016. The reason being the kids that were on the bus then are not on the bus now. So I'm really not violating anything presently by showing this data.
Gotcha.
There we go. Give it just a moment and give it a couple moments here. This account was moving a little slow on me. There we go. So here's the scan data. Now this client's a little bit weird on how they did it. You can scan as children get on and get off the bus. Because this was a special needs example, the parent had to be there for the child to board the bus. So the only scans this client's ever collected are when they actually get off the vehicle. And that's why you see a whole bunch here starting at Gatewood Peep. But you can see the date and the time, the student name and the ID number from the import in the system. You can also see in the last column the total distance traveled by the vehicle. And this is fantastic for things like, say, Medicaid reporting. Mm-hmm. So this is reporting that would be available to you. And just to show you, let's pick on a child here. How about Daniel Baker? What if Daniel's mom calls in and says, oh my gosh, I don't know if Daniel got on the bus this morning. Can you please just do a check? He was spending the night at a friend's. I have no idea what bus he's on. Well, I could go into the system. I could do a search for Daniel. Well, it turns out there's two Daniels. Well, I might have to be a little cautious here. Let's see here. Let's pick on that first Daniel. Well, I can go in, and if there's ridership data associated, yep, pick the right one. there's ridership data associated, I can see the last date and time for that scan. So I could verify to Daniel's mom, yes ma'am, I have proof that Daniel scanned on this particular time on this particular day.
Nice.
I'm just thinking about how long it takes, especially with like close to 150 to 200 buses to try to track down one errant child. That's, I'm going to guess ballpark, that's 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's depending upon who's listening on the radios. They use the radios for locating students right now.
Okay. Well, something
yeah,
else. Something else to bring up about that, and you're not seeing it here because the feature did not exist at the time that I took these screenshots. We just introduced it this last July. But along with the different icons that now show up on the Here Comes the Bus app, there are two new ones that show up in blue. And they show if a child has scanned on and if a child has scanned off. So in other words, here comes the bus. If the child is scanning at their stop, we'll tell mom and dad that they got on the bus. And I've got 3 daughters. The bus stop they're at has about 15 kids. So just knowing that the stop took place, you know, that's okay, but I'd really like to know my little girls made it onto the bus and not somewhere else. And that tells me every single day that yes, they did get on the vehicle, yes, they did get on at school. We don't have to worry.
That's great.
So, sir, I'm going to pause right here. I know you'd said that you were looking to see some of the Versatrans integration, and you were looking to see student ridership services. Do you have any questions on what I've shown you so far?
No, I don't think so.
I do have a little more to show you, but was there anything that maybe I haven't shown you that you were waiting to see?
Got the notification. Those are really cool. How about the maybe the planned versus actual? Is that available on a map? I see your plan versus actual on the report there. Are those can we compare those lines on a map?
Oh, you mean the actual path lines?
Yeah. The route plan versus the route driven?
Yes. Here, give me a moment. So we've got the plan versus actual points here on the map. If I come up here to my vehicle history button, give it a click, and wait, there it is. So there's the complete path that the vehicle has traveled, so all my GPS update points along with the stops. So using this, I can follow the vehicle history and also see where the vehicle has done pickup and drop off. The line feature that I showed you before for standard vehicle history, we are working on integrating that with this plan versus actual screen. Again, that's something that we're pushing for the HTML5 release. I have seen it in action. It does look slick. In fact, Matt and I were both at a conference where they were able to take multiple vehicles and put their routes together in a PVA overlay, and they were different colors, so you could see how one route played out against another route.
Okay.
I believe, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, they said when was that, August, that they're looking at having that ready?
Yes. It could be even sooner, but yes.
Well, okay, I won't say sooner. We're talking developer speak. They said August, so bare minimum August.
Yes. But, you know, also, Sean, just to keep this in mind as well, any updates or any upgrades to what we're showing to you today will all be included in your monthly price. We don't charge down the road, oh, we got a new new HTML, we're going to charge you another $10. No, it doesn't work that way.
No, so we update probably about once every 6 weeks. He's speaking the truth.
Okay.
So, sir, the only other big thing I think I was going to show you here today was the fact that we do have a pretty robust reporting engine. We can report on your fault codes, speeding, idling, vehicle history, zone entrance and exit via geofences. In the interest of time, sir, what would you say is probably the most important metric that you would need tracked?
I'm not really sure. I'm not a transportation guy. I'm the IT guy, so I'm kind of reviewing the system from the integration standpoint, not necessarily the management standpoint.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough.
So I can't tell you what would be the most important as far as the transportation view.
All right, then let me just give you a blanket integration answer. Not only do we have all this data available, and not only will we work with you to create reports if necessary, but sir, we offer an open API on all of our data services. It comes through as a CSV file, and that can be triggered on your end. And it's free of charge. It's part of our standard service. So just let us know what you need in the API if there's anything that we're not delivering, and we'll make that available to you.
So we can use that to extract data from Synovia and import it into our student information system or whatever system we decide.
Yes, you could. In fact, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but Versatrans RP, their route planner software, I want to say to a limited extent, it can take data from our system, can't it?
It can. It can.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought they were mentioning here earlier this week or last week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So yes, that would be available to you, sir.
Okay.
Well, at this point, and
one more point about student tracking.
Yes.
You mentioned it's a barcode reader, 1D barcode, I assume, or 2D. Do you have the capability to support RFID?
Yes, we do. We do have a secure key RFID device that will work just fine with our student tracking process. You can read RFID and EID as long as it's not encrypted. Now, I'll tell you this right up front. The reason I didn't show this device to begin with, the price to you for both devices is the same. There's really no difference from Synovia in terms of if you go one or the other. The catch is we don't provide you the cards. We assume that the school district is going to go ahead and take care of the card aspect. The cost of printing up a barcode is about 2 cents. The cost of programming an RFID card can go anywhere from $10 to $20. And again, I'm thinking about my own children and how often they lose important things. If you've got 200 vehicles with 70 kids riding, you've got a lot of lost cards in your future, just to be blunt.
Yeah. Do you have customers that are using RFID right now?
Let me think here. We do. Gwinnett County, Georgia was trying to use it. They've got about, I want to say, 1,200 vehicles, but I know that they abandoned it pretty quickly. I don't think they're using it currently. They've got them installed, just haven't touched them. And it was because of the cost issue. Beyond that, Matt, I want to say we've got some West Coast clients that are doing that. I think you and I came across one about a week or two ago, didn't we?
Yeah, and I can always send you some referrals. I mean, I would expect to. Same thing with the student ridership, everything that we showed you today. I would want you to talk to other people as well.
Yeah, just with the advantages of using the RFID for passive scanning of students. We've been thinking that might outweigh the cost of the RFID technology. But I'd like to talk to another district about real-world experience on how how an RFID tag works when the student's carrying it in their backpack and if it actually scans effectively.
Sir, let me stop you cold. I'm so sorry. This will work if you take the card out and actually tap it. What you're asking for, passive RFID, you have to have a wide-scale magnetic field for that to work, and you're inside a gigantic metal cylinder. There's just no good earthly way to do what you're after. We've explored it. The only way that I have seen it work is if you've got a dinner plate-sized RFID reader that's putting out so much, to be blunt, background radiation that it's like standing next to a 1950s microwave. It is not something that I recommend at all.
Interesting.
I know there are companies that claim that they can do it. I've seen it in action. I'm not going to name the companies, but I will say the results in the real world have been poor at best. I mean, this thing right here can get about 6 to 12 inches, which is pretty decent. I mean, I've walked by it, and I've had it beep from my wallet, but I'm right there. I don't know where the child would have it in their backpack. I can't guarantee that that would work. They would still have to take it out.
Yep. I'm just thinking about every department store that I walk through the doors of has passive RFID.
That's true, but they also have those gigantic towers that are right there, and they don't have any steel immediately around them.
Yeah, and they're not on a bus moving around on the streets either.
Yeah, there are just too many variables there. We looked at putting things right there in the door, like the scanners that go up and down, and they just went haywire because of that metal surrounding them.
Okay, that's good to know.
Any other questions, Sean?
No, that's it for now, thanks.
Excellent. Well, Sean, I want to thank you very much for your time this morning. I'm going to go ahead and step back now and turn you back over to Matt because I can't